Hey guys, LC Holt here, and this is my update for February the 11th. It's time for part 2 of our special 2-part episode on the Zodiac's letters and ciphers. Last week we covered 8 different letters and ciphers, and this week we're going to cover almost that many, maybe a few more. So since we have so many we have to do, and I want to have some time to talk about them afterwards, we're going to go ahead and get started with this. But before we do that, I want to reacquaint you all with my regular Zodiac co-conspirator, Mr. Zach Myers. Zach, how you doing, bud?
Hey, how's it going?
So, are you ready for some more Zodiac letters and ciphers?
Man, I am pumped. I hope everyone out there is pumped too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now, let's get on with this, shall we, Zach?
Let's do it.
All right, so June 26, 1970. We're going to start with the letter that was received that day to the San Francisco Chronicle. Okay, I have a picture of that letter, and then I'm going to read that letter to you. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Okay, as you can see, this letter came in 2 parts. There's a letter, and then there's a map that was sent along with the letter. So this is what the letter says. This is the Zodiac speaking. I have become very upset with the people of the San Francisco Bay Area. They have not complied with my wishes for them to wear some nice Zodiac buttons. I promised to punish them if they did not comply by annihilating a full school bus. But now school is out for the summer, so I punished them another way. I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38. Zodiac, 12. SFPD, 0. The map, coupled with this code, will tell you where the bomb is set. You have until next fall to dig it up. And then the map he's referring to is what's over there on the right. And above Mount Diablo, there is a crosshair. It sort of looks like a compass drawn. And it says 0 is to be set to mag north, meaning magnetic north. And over on the west, it has a 9. On the east, it has a 3. And at the south point, it has a 6. Now, on our previous show about suspects, we talked about a guy named Gareth Penn. And Gareth Penn used this Mount Diablo radiant theory to make a lot of accusations about a guy named Michael O'Hare. This is where that radiant theory comes from, is from this letter and this map. So it's interesting. There are a lot of interesting things about this letter. It claims 12 victims. We only know of 5 people that were murdered, but it claims that 12 people have been murdered by the Zodiac. So as you know from watching last week, the kill count gets higher and higher with each new letter. So what are you thinking about that letter, Zach? He is really obsessed with these damn buttons.
He really is. He needs to get off the whole button thing. This is really interesting because I talked about the whole Penn and O'Hara thing before, and so this is really intriguing to actually hear the letter that actually got, that started that whole accusations and stuff like that. So it's really interesting.
And what's funny about that is, you have Gareth Penn, and he is a guy who was considered at one point by the police to actually be a suspect himself. And I know there are a lot of videos on YouTube that go into how Gareth Penn was the Zodiac, and I've even gotten some messages about from people who believe that Gareth Penn, was the Zodiac, and explained why. I don't know. Zodiac going from the buses, blowing up. Well, originally he said he was going to shoot school children. Then he said he was going to blow them up. Now he's referring to another bomb that has something to do with Mount Diablo, but he's also adding in this whole radiant thing. And in one of these letters I'm about to read here shortly, he mentions the radiant theory again. The Zodiac does. So he kind of likes to he likes mixing things up. He started by shooting kids in parked cars. Then he attacked a couple by a lake in broad daylight. Then he killed a taxi driver in San Francisco. Then he threatened to shoot kids and then to blow them up. And now he's starting to bring in this Mount Diablo radiant thing. So if there's one thing Zodiac is good at, it's giving you variety. You know, he's throwing out all kinds of weird ideas, so whatever comes into his mind. So this radiant thing is another thing that now he's adding to the mix. So that was the letter that was received on June 26th. Not long after that, actually the next month, less than a month later, on July 24th, 1970, my birthday, by the way. Not 1970. I actually hadn't been born yet. I was about 10 years from being born, right? But that July 24th is my birthday. San Francisco Chronicle receives another letter from the Zodiac Killer. And I'm going to show you that letter now. All right, so there's that letter. You want to go ahead and read this one, Zach?
Yep. This was sent out July 24th, 1970. This is the Zodiac speaking. I am rather unhappy because you people will not wear some nice Zodiac buttons. So now I have a little list, starting with the woman and her baby. I gave a rather interesting ride for a couple hours one evening a few months back that ended up in my burning car where I found them.
Yeah, she says he burned her car where he found them. And what he's referring to there is a woman by the name of Kathleen Johns. Now, since we're on this subject, this is the first time he's mentioned Kathleen Johns. I'm going to give you a little bit. We talked about this on a previous show, but I'm going to go back over the Kathleen John thing because it seems apropos since he's mentioning her. Kathleen Johns was a young woman. She was 7 months pregnant. She already had a 10-month-old child. Modesto, California, on March 22nd, 1970. So, you know, as he said, it was a few months prior. This was July 24th, and he's referring to something that happened in March of that same year. She was traveling to her mother's house with her baby in tow. And as she was driving about 11:30 at night, there's a guy comes behind her, starts flashing his headlights, trying to get her to pull over to the side of the road. Kathleen pulls over to the side of the road. The guy comes over. She says he's a very nice looking man. There's nothing horrible about him. He's very unassuming. And so he says, I noticed your back tire, something's wrong with it. And I want to fix that for you real quick so that, you know, you can get to where you're going. Kathleen's like, oh, great. And so he takes out a lug wrench and he goes and he apparently fixes her back tire. Then he gets into the car. She leaves. He leaves. As she's driving, she makes it only a few yards. The back tire, according to her, comes off. And so she pulls over and the guy stops and he says, oh, it must have been worse than I thought. I can give you a ride down to the ARCO station. You need a ride? And she was like, well, okay, sure. So she takes her baby and gets into the car with this guy and they start to drive and he passes the ARCO station and he drives her around, according to her, for about an hour and a half. The whole time he's driving her around, he's mumbling to himself, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to throw your baby out the window. And I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to throw your baby out the window. And she realizes, you know, she's in deep shit, right? So he tries to go up the off-ramp, and she sees that as an opportunity to jump out of the car, runs off into a vineyard with her baby, and he leaves. And she kind of hangs out there terrified for a minute, and she sees a truck driver passing, but she sees it's a man driving, so she's hesitant. So she lets that pass. Then she sees a car come by. It's a woman. And she goes over and flags down the woman, and the woman takes her to the Patterson police station. And she arrives at the Patterson police station about 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's sitting at the Patterson police station telling her story, and she looks over and she sees on the bulletin board the artist's rendition of the man who killed Paul Stein in San Francisco. And she says, that's the guy who picked me up. And of course, that was the Zodiac Killer, or at least an artist sketch of what a witness said the Zodiac looked like. So that's how it all ties to the Zodiac case. They did find her car on fire. Actually, it was already smoldering by the time they found it. Now, the thing about this is a lot of people don't believe Kathleen Johns. She was having trouble with the guy she was with. They say that she was doing this as a cry for help and a call for attention. So the idea is that she set her own car on fire, then went a piece down the road and then flagged down somebody and said she was picked up by somebody, and she never actually was. They looked at the car when they found it smoldering, and the tow truck guy saw that the back tire had 2 lug nuts missing, and the other 2 were really loose. So the tire never came off the car. But if you had tried to drive on a tire that had, 2 missing lug nuts and then 2 more loose, you would have definitely noticed a problem. Yeah. So maybe she was wrong when she said that the tire came off. What do you think, Zach? Do you think she set her own car on fire and then tried to kind of weasel her way into the Zodiac case by saying he picked her up?
Personally, yes. I don't think she set her own car. I think she had help. But yeah, I don't. I think I said this on a previous show we talked about as well. That I think that it's so convenient that when she came in and saw the picture of the Zodiac, oh yeah, it was that guy. I happen to be one of the people that I call bullshit.
Okay, well, you would not be alone in that. A lot of people would agree with you. I mean, I suppose a lot of people,
She might as well just said her dad was the Zodiac.
Well, we all know that that's something that happens often, to say that your dad is the Zodiac. Because we talked about that on a previous show too. Everybody thinks their father is the Zodiac. Kathleen Johns didn't think her father was the Zodiac, but she did think Lawrence Kane was the Zodiac, because she actually later identified Lawrence Kane as being the guy that picked her up. And Lawrence Kane is another suspect that you talked about on our first Zodiac show. Or our first Zodiac suspect show. So, and it's a guy we're going to be mentioning again here later, because some of these letters tie into him as well. As you guys know, I'm not convinced about any of the suspects. I'm not going to say one way or another, but whenever we find things that tie into suspects, we're going to go ahead and kind of point it out, because we'd almost be remiss not to. So, so there's that. We got another letter. This was received July 26th. So that's 2 days after the one that you just read. And this letter is something else. Okay, I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about it. And I think we're going to have a lot to talk about with this particular letter. So let's get on with the reading of it, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is the July 26, 1970 letter as sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. This says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. Being that you will not wear some nice Zodiac buttons, how about wearing some nasty Zodiac buttons? Or any type of Zodiac buttons that you can think up. If you do not wear any type of Zodiac buttons, I shall, on top of everything else, torture all 13 of my slaves that I have waiting for me in paradise. Some I shall tie over anthills and watch them scream and twitch and squirm. Others shall have pine splinters driven under their nails and then burned. Others shall be placed in cages and fed salt beef until they are gorged. Then I shall listen to their pleas for water, and I shall laugh at them. Others will hang by their thumbs and burn in the sun. Then I will rub them down with deep heat and warm them up. Others I shall skin them alive and let them run around screaming. And all billiard players I shall have them play in a darkened dungeon cell with a crooked cue and twisted shoes. Yes, I shall have great fun inflicting the most delicious of pain to my slaves. SFPD 0, Zodiac 13. As someday it may happen that a victim must be found, I've got a little list. I got a little list of society offenders who might well be underground, who would never be missed, There is the pestilent nuisances who write for autographs. All people who have flabby hands and irritating laughs. All children who are up in dates and employ you with I'm plat. All people who are shaking hands shake like that. and all third persons who with unspoiling take those who insist. They'd none of them be missed. They'd none of them be missed. There's a banjo serenader and the others of his race, and the piano organist. I got him on the list. All people who eat peppermint and pump it in your face. They would never be missed. They would never be missed. And the idiot who praises the enthusiastic tone of centuries, but this and every country but his own. And the lady from the province who dresses like a guy, who doesn't cry, and the singular abnormality, the girl who never kissed. I don't think she would be missed. I'm sure she wouldn't be missed. And the nice priest that is rather rife, and the judicial humorist, I've got him on the list. All funny fellows, comic men and clowns of private life. They'd none of them be missed. They'd none of them be missed. And uncompromising kind, such as whatchamacallit, thingmabob, and likewise well, never mind. And tut, 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 and what's his name, and you know who. But the task of filling up the blanks I would rather leave up to you. But it really doesn't matter whom you place upon the list, for none of them will be missed. None of them will be missed. P.S. Mount Diablo code concerns radians and number of inches along the radians. Okay. I love that transition from, like, you know, this weird fucking poem into, oh yeah, by the way, the Mount Diablo radians. So, man, what do you think of that letter?
Dude, that is one crazy SOB, man. And he's quite creative in some of the shit that he says. That is by far my favorite Zodiac letter I think I've ever heard.
That is a very entertaining letter. And it makes me wonder, like, was the Zodiac a Bob Dylan fan? Because it almost sounds like one of Bob Dylan's nonsensical songs that was really popular a few years prior to this happening. You know, it's as if the Zodiac was rewriting Desolation Row or something, you know, because he's doing all these weird, like, rhyming schemes, and it's kind of nonsensical, and it's calling upon images like priests and stuff. Very Dylan-esque.
Bob Dylan is the Zodiac.
Well, I could never dare say that the great Bob Dylan was the Zodiac. How dare you, sir? But I know apparently Zodiac was also a Beatles fan, because he refers to Blue Meanies a lot, which is a villain in Yellow Submarine, which is the Beatles film that was released like a year prior to all this. So yeah, I guess so. Maybe Zodiac was a Dylan and Beatles fan.
Maybe, very possible. He's for sure a Beatles fan, but that does have a very Bob Dylan-esque to it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, some of the stuff that he from the very beginning, he's in this kind of rhyming scheme, you know, and then some of the stuff that he's talking about how he's going to torture the slaves that he has in paradise, like rub them down with deep heat and leave them in the sun. Like you're gonna rub them down with a self-heating ointment. It's just very weird, you know. And he's talking about the billiard players. If any of them are billiard players, he's gonna make them play in a dungeon with crooked cues and twisted shoes.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of time on his hands.
I tell you what, man. This letter is something very, very interesting. It is one of a kind, and I mean, what can I say about that? It pretty much speaks for itself. When I was telling you before he was going to mention again the radiance, he mentions it in that letter. And that's pretty much the end of the radiant theory in terms of him mentioning it. It's certainly not the end of the radiant theory for Gareth Penn. He's just getting started. But for the Zodiac, that's where it sort of ended. I'll wait to mention a slight theory I have about these letters here until after we read probably the next one. Because I think it would be more apropos to wait until after we read the next one. But I'm going to tell you something that I'm starting to get a feeling about in terms of these letters and in terms of the mindset of the guy, okay? But as I said, we'll probably skip ahead a few months before I say that, and we'll go to the October 5th letter. Actually, this was a card, okay? And okay, let me show it to you. I'm going to show you the October 5th, and then once you see it, I'll be able to talk about it a little better, okay? Okay, now this is a relatively famous card because it is what's referred to as 13 hole punch card. There are a lot of theories about it. As you can see down the side there are 13 hole punches. Let me read it to you and then we'll talk about it. It says San Francisco Chronicle, Monday, October 5th, 1970. Dear editor, you'll have me, but I've got to tell you. Oh, you'll hate me, but I've got to tell you. The pace isn't any slower. In fact, it's just one big 13. 13. Some of them fought. It was horrible. P.S. There are reports city police pig cops are closing in on me. F.K. I'm crack proof. What is the price tag now? Zodiac. And then there's that symbol beside it. This card was originally thought to be a forgery, someone seeking attention by sending in the Zodiac card. Eventually, they determined that it was not a forgery, and the reason they determined that is obviously not based on the handwriting because it's just pasted together from different things from magazines and newspapers and stuff. But it's because of some of the things that he said, such as crack proof. He's going to say that again in a handwritten letter that we know came from the Zodiac later. A lot of people talk about this strange initial that appears before he says that he's crack proof. FK. What does that mean? What does FK, I'm crack proof, mean? Some people think that it's his initials. Some people think that he's referring to something else. But that seems to be a big part of a lot of theories about the 13 hole punch card. It's really interesting. I mean, you know, he's kind of mixing it up. He's doing some multimedia because he's not writing it anymore. He's just sort of, and also a hole punch is to be seen later in the card about the Donna Lass disappearance in Lake Tahoe. He uses a hole punch in that card. Yeah, but some people think that's a forgery. If that's a forgery, then I don't know. Maybe I don't know what to make of this hole punch stuff. Zach, what do you think?
Well, out of all the letters, of all the Zodiac letters, this particular one I probably know the least about. But I think, you know, it's possible that it could be a forgery. I mean, there's so many that came through for people trying to get attention and trying to send stuff through. But the way, you know, the wording in it and stuff does sound like the Zodiac. So I'm kind of with you. It could kind of go either way. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I know the least about this one, this particular card.
Yeah, there are a lot of really cool videos about this card if you want to look them up. I don't know, when you're dealing with the 13 hole punch theories, it can kind of get as wild as some of the other theories. So it's definitely very, very interesting. It does seem to tie into the actual Zodiac correspondence in some of the language that he uses. But like I say, it's hard to say for sure because he didn't handwrite it, so you don't have the handwriting to match up. You just have something that's and the 13 hole punches are supposedly 13 victims, is what that's meant to represent. So, you know, so he's bumping it up another one, another victim. He said he claims, but as we talked about before, he seems to count victims that didn't necessarily die. It's just people that he, you know, I punched a guy on the street, you know, number 13.
Yeah, he counts everything.
He does seem to count everything. Yeah. So there's that card. Now we're going to go on to another letter. And this was an October 27th letter, right before Halloween. And oh, I say it's a letter. It's actually another card. But let's show the audience this card, and Zach, you can read it, okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, so there's a Halloween card. I should say that this was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was addressed specifically to Paul Avery, who wrote for the San Francisco Chronicle His name is actually misspelt in the card. It's misspelt as Averly, but it's actually meant to be Paul Avery. Okay, Zach, you want to go ahead and read what this says?
It reads, paradise, slaves, by fire, by gun, by knife, by rope. Peekaboo, you are doomed. 14, boo, Z.
Yes, so he signs it with the actual letter Z, the symbol for the zodiac, and you see that other little symbol next to Z? That is actually the astrological sign for Taurus.
Oh.
It's the only time he ever used that astrological sign. And some people point to the fact that Lawrence Kane, again, his astrological sign was Taurus. So people who believe Lawrence Kane is the zodiac like to use this card to further that theory. Okay. Now, I should probably also mention this was sent to Paul Avery, but not only was it just a card sent to Paul Avery, it had a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt in it. So we know this came from the Zodiac. And I would love to have been there when Paul Avery opened this damn card and there's this crazy ass letter in there with a piece of bloody shirt. Now, what this tells us is that up until October 27th of 1970, Zodiac was holding on to the scraps of Paul Stein's shirt. So he's pretty confident that he's not going to get caught with this thing. Because if you keep that in your house and the cop comes by and they see Paul Avery's bloody shirt in your closet, or what the piece that he cut off of it, not the whole shirt because he just cut a little piece off, but enough to send several times, because this is the third time somebody's gotten a piece of Paul Avery's shirt. The San Francisco Chronicle got a piece of Paul Avery's shirt. Good old Melvin Belli got a piece of Paul Avery's shirt, and now not Paul Avery. I keep confusing these fucking Pauls. Paul Stein. Paul Avery wasn't killed by the Zodiac killer.
Too many Pauls.
Too many fucking Pauls. Paul McCartney. Let's get to the Beatles again. Let's go back to them. But yeah, so Paul Stein. I caught myself that time because I've mixed up these two fuckers before. Okay, so Paul Stein was the one who was killed. His shirt was the one that was cut off. It was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. It was sent to good old Melvin Belli, and it was sent to Paul Avery. So that shirt has gotten around. It should also be mentioned, I think, that he refers to killing his slaves in paradise with a rope and by fire with that card. We don't know of the Zodiac ever killing anybody by rope or by fire. So again, he's saying, I killed 14 people, because I'm assuming that's what the 14 means, is he's upping the body count by one more. He went from, 12 to 13, now 14. And he's saying that some of these unknown victims were killed by rope and by fire. What do you think, Zach? Do you think he...
Nuts.
You don't think that he killed anybody else by rope and fire, and it's just like...
No, they would have found it, I'm pretty sure. I think he's just nuts. This card makes no sense. It seemed like he was just really into Cat in the Hat at the time, and he was just trying to rhyme stuff and crap, and it didn't work well for him.
And we have to remember the timeline of this thing too. Okay, so this is October 27th of 1970. Paul Stein was killed in October of 1969. So we're a little over a year after the last known fatality. 5 fatalities. Now he's saying 14. That's a lot of people to kill in a 1 year's time when it took you, a little over a year to kill 5 people. Now, I mean, and not to be caught, not to be noticed. None of these victims are being tied to you. That's a lot of people to kill in a year. So, yeah, I honestly don't buy the rising death count. And by the end of the show, this death count is going to skyrocket. Okay, you think 14 is a lot? Just wait till we get to some of these later letters.
I mean, it's very common for serial killers to take credit for stuff they didn't do, but the Zodiac, oh boy, he's notorious for it.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Okay, so that was in October of 1970. Now we're going to zoom ahead We're going to zoom. That's the universal gesture of zooming to March 13th of 1971. This is very unusual because the next piece of correspondence was sent to the Los Angeles Times, not to the Zodiac's newspaper of choice, which was the San Francisco Chronicle. And it was not postmarked from San Francisco. It was postmarked from a town called Pleasanton, okay? And I'm going to show you this letter. And this, again, new city, new newspaper, postmarked from a different town. All right, this is the letter that was sent to the Los Angeles Times. It says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. Like I always said, I am crack-proof. If the blue meanies are ever going to catch me, they had best get off their fat asses and do something. Because the longer they fiddle and fart around, the more slaves I will collect for my afterlife. I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activities, but they are only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. The reason I'm writing to the Times is this. They don't bury me on the back pages like some of the others. SFPD 0, Zodiac 17 plus." All right. So remember that theory I was mentioning earlier? Now I'm going to tell you what this sort of theory I have about some of these letters is. Here he's writing to the Los Angeles Times. I think one of the main reasons, and he says why he's writing, because the San Francisco Chronicle started burying him on the back pages. I think that he started to have, you know, it's sort of like a kid in a classroom and he does something wild and he's like #1 attention getter. And then, you know, other things start to happen. And then that kid starts to recede into the background a little bit, right? You see how I'm receding? This is how the Zodiac, he's receding into the background. And other things are taking precedence over him. And he's like, wait a second, guys, I'm important. I want to be, and the cops are going, yeah, you were important, dude, but you haven't actually done anything that we know about. You've given a lot of hollow threats, and you've been giving a lot of hollow threats for quite some time now, over a year, but you actually haven't done anything. But you keep writing in, and you still want to be on the front page, and it's just not front page news anymore. And Zodiac is getting pissed. And I think this kind of goes back to the letter I read earlier, you know, the crazy one with the buttons. And he's like, wear a nice Zodiac button. Oh, wear a nasty one. Wear any Zodiac button. Because he's like, I need this attention. I want you guys.
He's an attention whore.
Yes, and he's thriving on it. And he's just not front page news anymore. And he's hoping now that maybe Los Angeles Times will think that he's front page news, you know, and it's sort of sad. If he wasn't a serial killer, it would be sort of sad because he's just not getting any attention anymore. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the kill count that he's claiming keeps going up, but no evidence to say that he killed any more people after Paul Stine. I actually kind of think that he killed Paul Stine in San Francisco and he nearly got caught. I think he nearly got caught right there on the street. And I think it kind of scared him. And what he realized was, you know what? Writing letters and making threats is a hell of a lot easier than killing people and being out there where I could get caught. Maybe I should stop while I'm ahead. And I could be wrong about this. But I think that when this correspondence of his started not to get front page news and he was scared off of killing, that he started to really panic and be like, give me some buttons. Okay, New York Times, will you pay attention to me? Hey, will you guys? And then, you know, because he's just receding off into the back pages and eventually his shit doesn't even get published anymore because they're like, Zodiac? Oh, that's old news, man. So this is a theory of mine, Zach. What do you think?
I am totally with you on that. I think he's a great attention whore and he just needs any attention any way he can get it. And there is I'm with you all the way. There is no proof that he killed anyone after Paul Stine.
And it's also kind of interesting because, you know, he mentioned Kathleen Johns. Now, Kathleen Johns was in the newspaper for claiming the Zodiac picked her up. We know that the Zodiac reads the newspaper. It wouldn't be a huge stretch to say that the Zodiac read that he picked up a girl. And when his attention and his fame started to die off, he suddenly took credit for it and said, oh yeah, I did pick up that girl. And now he's mentioning with this last letter, Sherry Jo Bates in Riverside, something that the papers had tied him to. And now he's saying, oh yeah, I killed her too. You know, so he likes to take credit for stuff. And I think he's trying to use these sort of other cases that he's allegedly being tied to kind of up the ante, because he's not taking credit for this shit until after his fame starts to diminish. And then his fame starts to diminish, and it's like, oh yeah, and I did that, and I did that. Oh, and Sherry Jo, I did her too, you know, sort of thing. So and then there's that. So that was March 13th, 1971. Not long after that, March 22nd, a card was received, and it was from the Sierra Club in Lake Tahoe. We talked about this card on the first Suspect show that we did. So I don't know if I'm going to go over the Sierra Club postcard again, but that has to do with the disappearance of Donna Lass. And Donna Lass, just as a quick recap, was a nurse down in South Lake Tahoe, a place where Lawrence Kane had moved. So a lot of the Lawrence Kane people say, you know, that this was proof that Lawrence Kane killed someone else, being Donna Lass. But there's no real evidence that the Zodiac was in South Lake Tahoe or that he had anything to do with Donna Lass other than the postcard from the Sierra Club, which had a hole punch in it. A lot of people claim that this was a forgery done by a police officer involved with the case, and I'm assuming they're trying to implicate a guy named Dave Toschi, who was lead investigator of the case in San Francisco, who had gotten reprimanded because people claimed that he had, in order to keep himself and the case in the press, that he had forged a couple pieces of Zodiac mail. Now, I'm not going to say that Dave Toschi did that. I don't know. I don't know that he forged the Sierra Club postcard, but some people say that he did as a way of keeping the Zodiac and himself in the press because he was the lead investigator in San Francisco. So anyway, so there's the Sierra Club postcard. The next one we're going to do, we're going to have to speed the reel ahead, as they say in cinema, a few years. Several years actually, to January 29th of 1974. Okay, so the last one was March 13th of 71. Now we're moving ahead to January of 1974. These letters are starting to get really spaced out. He's starting to stop. He's starting to like even say, okay, I'm not getting attention, so maybe I should stop writing. But 74, another letter comes in. So let's show this letter. Very famous letter there. Okay, Zach, go ahead and read this.
I saw and think The Exorcist was the best satirical comedy that I have ever seen. Signed, yours truly. He plunged himself into the billowy wave, and the echo across the suicides gave to willow, to willow, to willow. P.S. If I do not see this in your paper, I will do something nasty, which you know that I'm capable of doing. Me, 37, SFPD 0, SFPD 0. Now, obviously the code at the bottom is saying that he's claiming 37 victims. You know, it keeps going up. He keeps claiming 37 victims and then saying that the San Francisco Police Department have 0. They have nothing on him. And basically he's using references from a song by Gilbert and Sullivan. To Willow, the song's called To Willow, and he's using like a whole part from a song right in that, you know, kind of beginning to middle part of the letter. And pretty crazy.
There's some sort of a weird bit of symbology there beneath the postscript, which I guess is meant to be another sort of code of some kind. It's just what looks like a bunch of, I don't even know what to call that, shapes. But looking at this letter, there's something that kind of jumps out at me about it. Does it jump out at you that he doesn't say, this is the Zodiac speaking, nor does he use his symbol?
That is very interesting. He usually normally does one or the other.
The only thing really that you could look at to say this was a Zodiac letter is obviously the Me 37 SFPD 0, which he liked to do. But and the kind of the handwriting looks similar. But other than that, if you took that off, you wouldn't necessarily even know that was the Zodiac letter.
No, that's very true.
Well, that's interesting. So he was a Gilbert and Sullivan fan, hey? Tawillo, Tawillo?
All I gotta say is this guy listens to some very interesting music. How can this guy listen to such chill music, but he's such a violent dude? What the fuck is that about?
Yeah, he's like killing people out in the street, and then he goes back home and he's like listening to Simon and Garfunkel. It's like, wow, okay.
Didn't see that coming.
And he claims 37 victims. So, okay, so in 71, it was 17 plus. 74, it's 37. He's been doing a lot of killing that nobody's noticed.
That nobody even knows about.
That's pretty damn impressive. Okay, so we mentioned The Exorcist. He's a film fan. In the next letter we're going to talk about, we're going to see he is still a film fan. He likes Yellow Submarine, The Blue Meanies. He likes The Exorcist. He's great satirical comedy. And now I'm going to show you this next letter and talk about another film that he's seen and apparently didn't enjoy. All right. Now, this is a really interesting letter because you can see the handwriting very clearly matches the Zodiac. And handwriting experts on the Zodiac case did match it. I mean, it's clear that the Zodiac wrote that, okay? This was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, May 8th, 1974. And now I'm going to read this to you. It says, Editor, SF Chronicle, 5th and Mission, San Fran. Sirs, I would like to express my consternation concerning your poor taste and lack of sympathy for the public, as evidenced by your running of the ads for the movie Badlands, featuring the blurb, in 1959, most people were killing time. Kit and Holly were killing people. In light of recent events, this kind of murder glorification can only be deplorable at best. Not that glorification of violence was ever justifiable. Why don't you show some concern for your public sensibilities and cut the ad? Signed, a citizen. All right. Very interesting letter, that one. Okay. Because he's not recognizing himself as the Zodiac. He's not signing as the Zodiac. He's signing simply as a citizen. And he's criticizing violent movie ads for Badlands, which, by the way, was a movie that came out in March of 1974 in LA. And it starred Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek. And it was directed by Terrence Malick. And it was a movie that was loosely based on the Charles Starkweather murder spree in the Badlands of Nebraska, which had happened, many, many years before. Very good movie, actually. But that was its tagline, and he's criticizing the tagline and talking about how you shouldn't glorify murder. Now, I guess some people might look at that and say, haha, he's being, don't glorify murder, but I'm the Zodiac. What do you think, Zach? Odd letter.
Well, I have two things to say about this. One, looking at that letter, his penmanship is shit. Like, this guy, I swear to God, I couldn't read that to save my life. And two, he's got good taste in movies so far. I'm not going to so far say with the music, because the whole Gilbert and Sullivan thing, that kind of, he lost points for that. But
he does like the Beatles. He likes the Beatles.
No, the Beatles and Bob Dylan, I'm digging that. I was like, okay, he's got good taste in music until the Gilbert and Sullivan thing. And I'm just like, you know what, man, you lost a couple of points. But, his movie count, he's got good taste in movies. I will say that.
Yeah. I think he probably really dug the Badlands, but the film Badlands. But it's a really good movie, actually. But he's saying he didn't like those ads. So that's a real interesting letter for many, many reasons. No kill count, no signing at the Zodiac. It is interesting that he signed it, a citizen. Okay. He just recognizes himself as a citizen, concerned about public interest. Okay. And that, by the way, is the last absolutely confirmed Zodiac letter based on the handwriting and everything else. But we're not done yet, because there are actually two more letters we're going to talk about. The next letter was sent was received July 8th of 1974 to the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm going to show you that letter now. Okay. And what does this letter say, Zach?
It says, editor, put Marco back in the hellhole from I got tongue-tied, sorry about that. Where he came from. Has serious psychological disorder, always needs to feel superior. I suggest you referring to a shrink. Meanwhile, cancel the Count Marco column, since the Count can write anonymously, so can I. Signed the Red Phantom.
Red with rage.
Red with rage. Sorry about that.
Red Phantom, red with rage.
And a lot of things can be said about this letter. You know, the speaking, you know, keeping with the theme of movies and everything. The whole suspect with Lawrence Kane. He worked at the movie theater where they showed the Red Phantom,
which was a silent film from 1907.
Yes, and for all those people wondering what Marco and what, you know, Count Marco was he did advice columns in the San Francisco Chronicle, and his actual real name was Mark Spinelli, but he went by Count Marco. So he actually died of cancer in 1996.
He died of cancer, you say?
Yeah.
So whoever wrote this letter did not like Count Marco's advice column.
No, they certainly did not.
So you look at that, and honestly, I don't think that handwriting looks like the Zodiac killer. I don't think the Zodiac wrote that. I just don't. I don't know. That's another big one for Lawrence Kane, because Lawrence Kane at the silent movie theater drew a lot of their posters, and the handwriting does kind of look like the poster handwriting, the Lawrence Kane drawn poster handwritings. If Lawrence Kane had written that letter, which is entirely possible, that doesn't make him the Zodiac, because I mean, this is just complaining about Count Marco's advice column. But it's close enough to put it into this whole Zodiac milieu, you know, and it is often included, that letter. My personal opinion, though, is that it's not written by the Zodiac. What do you think, Zach?
I don't think so either. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's very, very different looking letter. So that was in July of 1974. There is a new letter that has surfaced that a lot of people are kind of clinging on to and saying is a lost Zodiac letter. I'm going to show you that letter, and I'm going to read you that letter. That letter has a racial slur in it that I am not going to read and that I am not going to show, because just because the guy that wrote it was an asshole doesn't mean I have to be.
That's right, Elsie, classy all the way.
So let's take a look at this letter. All right, already you can probably kind of see that it doesn't look like the Zodiac's handwriting. It looks similar. This was received May 2nd, 1978. So that's 4 years after the letter that you just read. This was sent to KHJ-TV, Channel 9 in Los Angeles. And it says, "Dear Channel 9, this is the Zodiac speaking. You people in LA are in for a treat. In the next 3 weeks, you are finally going to have something good to report. I have decided to begin killing again. Please hold the applause. Nothing is going to happen until I do. You people just won't let me have you people just won't let me have it any other way. I plan to kill 5 people in the next 3 weeks. 1. Chief Piggy Daryl Gates. 2. Chief Piggy Ed Davis. 3. Pat Boone. His theocratic crap is an obscenity to the rest of the world. Also, Eldridge Cleaver. The expletives got to get their 20% quota after all. And Susan Atkins, the Judas of the Manson family. She's going to get hers now. Hey, you actors, this is your lucky break. Remember, whoever plays me has their work cut out for them. See you in the news. And then there's the Zodiac symbology down at the bottom there. So looking at this letter, Zach, looking at that handwriting, do you think that that looks like the Zodiac's handwriting?
No, no, I don't. It doesn't look like it at all. And just because you scribble and ramble doesn't mean that it's a Zodiac letter. But no, I'm not convinced.
It also, I mean, and that language, the way the words are lined up, after we've read so many of these over the course of these two shows, you kind of get an idea of how this guy talks. It doesn't sound like him.
No.
Now, to give a little background information on some of the people he was referring to there, Gates was the current police chief in Los Angeles, and Ed Davis was the previous police chief in Los Angeles. Both of them were involved in the Manson family case. Susan Atkins was obviously mentioned in the letter. She was a member of Charles Manson's family. This has led a lot of people who believe in this letter to claim that the Zodiac was a part of the Manson family. There's no evidence of that. And as I said before, I don't buy that this letter was written by the Zodiac. But that I wanted to include it because, you know, why not be thorough, right?
No, I agree.
The last known letter from the Zodiac is the one that was signed a citizen. So that kind of wraps up all of the Zodiac's letters. I tell you, it's very, very interesting, this whole case. And over the course of these 6 shows, we've talked about a lot of different aspects to the case. And that's 6 hours worth of material. Even at the end of this, I don't know if I can say any of these people are the Zodiac killer. It's just so many ins and outs and avenues you can go down that to definitively point your finger at one person and say that was the Zodiac is not something I'm comfortable with doing. What are you thinking, Zach?
Oh, I'm still stuck on, I have my guy. You know, I'm still convinced it's Arthur Lee Allen.
Oh, really? So you're an Arthur Lee Allen. You really think Arthur Lee Allen did it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I do.
Well, there's a lot of evidence against Arthur Lee Allen. We did a whole show, actually, about Arthur Lee Allen and all that evidence because there's so much that's been collected over the years. You know, I just can't say, man. I don't know. I know that he has written a lot of really strange fucking letters. I know there was that one that we read today. I swear I don't know what he was smoking, but that motherfucker was smoking something because that was some weird shit. To quote George Bush at Trump's inauguration, that was some weird shit. So I don't know, man. I really don't know. But you know, at the end of the day, there's always a possibility with Touch DNA and this ancestry database that you could actually find somebody eventually. And I really hope that this case can be concluded. Many of the participants are no longer with us. Some of the victims are, and I would like for them and their families to have some sense of closure in this case. I just don't know if that's going to happen. It's been so long since this happened. You know, do you think it'll ever be solved, Zach?
It very well could. I mean, with the technology that we have today and stuff, you know, it's very possible. Now, granted, I don't think he's alive. Because granted, I think it's Arthur Lee Allen, and he's not alive anymore. Now, I'm always willing to, you know, keep an open mind, and I could be wrong. But even if it's not, if it's someone else, I guarantee you they're dead. But they might find out who it was.
Yeah, you could still get a name even if the person is dead.
Better be Arthur Lee Allen.
And you know, if it was Arthur Lee Allen, then I'll just have to shrug my shoulders and say, Zach, you were right. It was Arthur Lee Allen. But like I say, I just don't know. I think at the conclusion of this Zodiac series, I'm still on the fence about it all. Zach has got his suspect. Now, I can't say for absolute certain, put the nail on the coffin of the series, but this Zodiac series was always meant to be 6 parts, and this is the 6th part. If something else comes about, obviously, and we can fill an hour with it, I'll do more Zodiac shows. I'm actually plotting a new series similar to this that I think you guys will enjoy. I also want to say that I am going to be doing more true crime shows, since I can clearly see that's what you guys, want to hear about. That's a subject that you guys are really into, and as am I. So I would love for you guys to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or down in the comments section of this video and tell me some true crime cases you would like us to cover, because I would really love to hear your suggestions, because chances are I'll take them if it's interesting. Man, at the end of this Zodiac series, I can honestly say, Zach, this has been quite a journey.
Yes, it has.
And have you enjoyed this journey we've taken down the road of Z?
Oh, I've had a blast. I've had a killer time.
Yeah.
2 Zodiac puns.
I tell you, have a blast, killing time. It's great. Yeah. You're so funny, Zach. I like you. Oh shit. Okay. Well, this was a fun time with my old buddy, and we'll be seeing Zach some more, and we'll be seeing some more true crime cases. And like I say, I'm not going to reveal what this series we're working on next is, but I think you're going to like it. Anyway, more interesting stuff next week. I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Until next time, I just want to say take care of yourselves, guys.